Hello everyone. Today's lecture is based upon these important terms that you can see on your screen. Okay. Now all these are like according to me, basically if you want to learn coding in any language. Okay. So the coding basic terminology is something, it has something to do with all these terms. So this is the coding terminology that we are going to understand today. Once you're aware about all these terms, then definitely starting coding in any of the languages will become very simple thing for you. Let's start with the first one. Now, I'm going to categorize this. First, we are going to discuss about this particular topic. Thereafter, we'll proceed with data information. Next, we'll come to levels of computer languages. Thereafter, we have the source code and the object code. After that, compiler and interpreter. Finally, bugging and debugging the program. So, without wasting time, let's start with the first discussion, hardware, software, and the liveware. Now, I think this is a very common thing which I don't think I'm going to give more time in explanation. Hardware means all the physical components, all the physical peripherals. Okay, now this term you should be aware about. Or this means all the gadgets, everything, all the machinery part which is there in your system. Okay, whether it is inside the system or it is visible outside the system, whether it is the mouse or the keyboard or the cables involved, or it is something on the motherboard. So all these various examples you can think of. So the physical peripherals which are attached to your computer system, they come under hardware. Okay, so this is not homework, right? Remember, this is what I mean is hardware. Next, after this, we'll come to the next one, that is your software. Now, talking about software, software means the entire coding, okay, the programming part, the coding part, which is actually making your machine run or execute your task. Okay, otherwise, the physical peripherals, what are they meant for? They have their specific purpose, but they are just over there as a dump machine. So your computer is just going to be a dump machine. Until and unless there is some program, there is some coding, there is some software which is running on your machine, on your hardware. So that is the importance of software. After software, the next one is your liveware, or at times you can also find this term firmware. So now what is the meaning of this liveware or firmware? So as the name suggests, liveware means it is actually we are talking about the programmers who are making the hardware plus the software run in a particular manner. Okay, so when we are just sort of collaborating in between the hardware and the software, so we become the liveware. The programmers are the liveware. Okay, so this is all about your hardware, software, and liveware discussion. This was just a minor discussion actually. Now, here, the next one, that is data and information. So, data and information, what I have seen through the years, that there is a very confusion. Okay, there's a whole lot of confusion between the terms data and information. Okay, so just remember one thing: this is raw, and this is ripe. Clear. So data actually means the facts and the figures which you collect for a particular task. Okay. So the facts and the figures, or the figures you can say, like you have one somebody's name as Amar, then you have that he's 18 years of age. Okay. Then you have his date of birth also mentioned. So this is what forms of data, right? This is the varied forms of data. Information means if I give you a statement that Amar is 18 years old, his date of birth is so and so. So this particular sentence, this particular statement makes complete sense. Okay, this makes sense. So this is actually what information is all about. Information means when we gather the data, when we gather the raw data, when we process the raw data, we get some sensible information. So we get sensible information after processing of raw data. Okay, now there is another hidden concept over here which is called IPO. This is a very important cycle. It's called the IPO cycle. Now, what is the meaning of this IPO cycle? This means I stands for input, P stands for processing, and O stands for output. So this is your input, processing, output cycle. So when you talk about your computer, so this is your computer machine. So you need an input device in some or the other form to give the data and what has to be done with the data. Okay, remember, what do you give to the computer? You give the data and you give the instructions that what you have to do with the data, how you have to deal with the data. You'll write programs, you'll write codes, and you'll ask the computer to perform some task. Now the computer has the CPU, which does the processing part. And then finally, the processed results, or you can say the information is passed on to the user through output devices. Okay, I think I'm very clear now. This is what the IPO cycle is all about. So we have the data and information also covered up. Now coming on to the computer languages, the different levels of computer languages. Now, the computer languages, the language is what we give, how we give instructions to the computer. So we give the instructions to the computer through the computer languages. There are three levels of computer languages. Okay, now the first level languages are called the low level languages. Then we have the middle level languages. And then finally we have the high level languages. Okay, now the low level language, we have the machine language, which is very close to your computer. Okay, it is close to your machine, that how the data is actually dealt with inside your machine. Okay, inside your machine. So that is written in machine language. Just to brief you, it is a binary language. Okay, so binary means it is 0 and 1. So only by making use of zeros and ones, the entire language, the code is written. So this is very low level language. Then coming next, we have the middle level language. Now, middle level language, we have a very important example of assembly language, which makes the task little simple for the user plus the machine to understand a particular code. So this is midway in between. It makes use of mnemonics. And this is how assembly language is written. Last but not the least, we have the high level language. Now, the high level language, as the name suggests, it is actually meant for the user. It is a very simplified language which the user can understand and write a coding in. So the high level languages, all the languages that we spoke of earlier, the procedure oriented languages or the object oriented languages, all these are actually, they come under high level languages. Okay, so we will learn how to write a program in the high level language. Okay, so I think we have covered steps, the important terms 1, 2, and 3, and I'll see you next in the next video.